Okay, good afternoon. I'm very happy that we can celebrate together today the World Soil Day. Our webinar today is about healthy soils with compost, the benefits of compost use on soil organic matter. First, some housekeeping rules. So we have muted all participants, and you will also not have the possibility to speak, but you are free to put your questions into the chat after the presentations, after each presentation, so that we can also respond to you bilateral afterwards if we have not enough time to go into detail for every question. Okay. So, first of all, we are very proud and thankful that the University of Bologna has given us its patronage and that the Department of Agriculture and Food Science supports our webinar by presenting its first research results on the long field trial of compost application on agricultural use of the Navarra project in Italy. I would like to introduce to you ECN. ECN is a European network. We are an European association promoting compost and digestate in the circular economy. ECN supports a separate collection of biowaste with the aim to produce high-quality compost and digestate. We represent in total 67 members from 27 European countries. These members are mainly national biowaste, compost and digestate organizations, which represents more than 4,500 composting and anaerobic digestion plants, treating 48 million tons of biowaste into valuable secondary materials like compost, digestate and biogas. With the World Soil Day webinar today, we would like to take the opportunity to inform you about the latest legislative developments on soil in the European Union and to highlight the importance of circular bio-based materials, in particular compost, to improve soil organic matter. Soil organic matter, on which soil microorganisms depend, and sustainable soil management practices play a key role in keeping our soils healthy. The use of compost and digestate as organic soil improvers and fertilizers can contribute to this. With the support of the Department of Agriculture and Food Science of the University of Bologna, we are pleased to present the results of the first 6-year field trial on the use of compost in agriculture. After this presentation, we will present you as well European projects in which we are involved to accelerate the management of biowaste and to integrate circular fertilizers and soil improvers into sustainable soil management practices. The theme of World Day 2024 is caring for soil, measuring, monitoring, managing. We all know and are aware that soils, along with air and water, are the most valuable resources for life on Earth. Soils provide functions that are fundamental to soil fertility, plant nutrition, and water filtration. Therefore, we need to keep our soils healthy, and we need a legislative instrument to monitor soil health. Accurate soil data and information are essential to understand soil characteristics and to support informed decision-making on sustainable soil management for food security. First, I will give you some key figures. We all know that our European soils are unhealthy. Up to 60 to 70% of the European soils are not in a well health status, and we also know worldwide that 33% of soils are degraded. Soils are important because 95% of our food comes from soils. It can take up to 1,000 years to produce 1 to 3 centimeters of soil. And here, organic matter plays a very important role because the humus layer on the soil is the most important layer in the soil to provide a good structure for the soil, for the microorganism, and to also to make the nutrients available. Soils supply 15 of the 80 natural occurring chemical elements essential to plants. So plant nutrition is very important. We need the soils for this. Up to 58% more food could be produced through sustainable soil management. We all know that our soils, as I mentioned before, are degraded, so we have also to improve the use and the practice how we manage our arable soils today. Up to 50% of our household waste could be composted to feed our soils. We know that we have in our residual waste from households that we have more than 50% of bio-waste in this fraction, which is lost in several countries where no separate collection of bio-waste is in place. We have in ECN, we have done a survey and we know that for the time being, we are recycling 71 million tons of separately collected bio-waste, which is treated in composting and anaerobic digestion plants across Europe. In total, we produce 21 million tons of compost per year. If we apply the compost with 10 tons of fresh matter per hectare per year, we can improve up to 60% of arable land, which is severely degraded by erosion. But further implementation of separate collection of bio-waste, with further implementation of separate collection of bio-waste, we can provide for 46 million tons of compost products by 2035. This is our aim, so that we really can contribute to replace mineral fertilizers and other organic materials which are used as well in growing media. Okay. So now we will start with our session on the different talks. And I would like to introduce to you our first speaker. Our first speaker is Aline Gagnard. She's my colleague. She's our policy officer in ECN. She's a policy officer for environment and agriculture. And she's actively involved in the legislative developments on European level. And she will give us an update what is going on in the discussion with the European Parliament, with the Commission, and with the Council, so with the Member States, on the soil monitoring law. Aline, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Stephanie. So yeah, I will present to you one key legislative file, which is being drawn up by European institutions. So it's the soil monitoring law, which is a proposal for a directive on soil monitoring and resilience. So I will give you the state of the art of this law, and I will provide you with some insights on what is being discussed in the trilogue negotiations. So this first slide that you can see, it's to give you an overview of the timeline of the whole legislative process before the text is effectively adopted. So first, it's the Commission, which came up with a proposed text in July last year. Then the text was amended by both the European Parliament and the Council, representing the member states. So the European Parliament adopted its proposed amendments to the text in April this year, and the Council did the same in June. So then, based on that, the three institutions will start negotiating to find an agreement on a common version of the text during the so-called trilogue negotiations. So the negotiations already started on the 22nd of October, and the final agreement on the text is expected to be reached during the second trilogue, so on 12th December. So we are waiting for the outcome of this second trilogue, basically. And finally, the Council and the Parliament will have to formally approve the text that was agreed on in trilogues. And normally it's only a simple formality. And then the text will be officially adopted and published in the official journal. So I will present you successively the different positions of the three institutions. And so you can see the differences between them. So next slide. Yeah, so we start with the proposal of the European Commission. So we can divide it into 4 parts. So first, the general provisions. So the directive applies to all soils in the EU. It gives a number of definitions. So what is soil health? What are the soil descriptors? what sustainable soil management means, and it requires member states to establish soil districts, which constitutes the basic government units to manage the soils and to apply the requirements of the directive. So different parameters must be taken into account, such as soil type, climatic conditions, or land use, so to establish these soil districts. The proposal is quite general, and it doesn't set mandatory targets for soil health. It only requires member states to achieve healthy soils by 2050, which is an objective that is already mentioned in the soil strategy, which is a non-binding document that was set up in 2021. So the objective of the soil monitoring law is to lay down measures on the monitoring and assessment of soil health based on soil descriptors. So soil descriptors, it can be soil erosion, for example, soil organic carbon concentration, or the water holding capacity of the soil. Then for each soil descriptor, criteria, for example, threshold values are set, as well as the methodologies to assess it. So a soil is considered healthy for the Commission if the values for all soil descriptors meet the criteria. And this is why we talk about the one out, all out principle. And this assessment should be performed every 5 years. Then regarding the sustainable soil management, so the Commission proposed that the member states should define sustainable soil management practices, taking into account the sustainable soil management principles, which are listed in Annex. For example, one of these principles is the prioritization of circular solutions that enrich organic content when fertilization is applied. And the text also defines practices that negatively affect the soil health and that should be avoided by soil managers. Then for the last point on contaminated sites, so the member states should also establish a risk-based approach for the identification and investigation of potentially contaminated sites and a risk assessment and management of the contaminated sites. And they will do this through remediation and risk reduction measures. And for example, composting and soil amendments are listed as a remediation technique for contaminated soils. Then we can move on the next slide to the position of the Parliament. So, which you will see try to weaken the proposal from the Commission on several points. So the MEPs did not propose binding targets, neither, but they kept the reference to the objective to achieve healthy soils by 2050. And they also want to extend the scope of the directive so that it's not only to monitor and assess soil health, but it's also to improve and rehabilitate the soil based on its ecological status. Regarding the soil monitoring design, so the Parliament wants the Commission to contribute to the monitoring carried out by the Member States by providing sampling and analyzing of at least 20% of the size of national samples. And the Parliament gives Member States autonomy to choose between 3 monitoring tiers. Each of them includes degradation factors, soil ecological functions, etc. And they each have a different level of requirement. So for each of these tiers, there are corresponding soil descriptors. And then to assess soil health, no, it was previous slide, sorry. The third point, so to assess soil health, the Parliament proposes to have 5 different categories, rather than just saying whether the soil is healthy or not healthy, which is what was proposed by the Commission. So a soil that is considered healthy for the Parliament if it is classified with either high soil ecological status or good ecological status. Then on the next slide, so regarding the sustainable soil management, as I told you before, the Commission wanted the member states to define sustainable soil management practices to be implemented on all monitoring soils and taking into account sustainable soil management principles. So the Parliament deleted this part and instead proposes that the Commission establishes a sustainable soil management toolbox to provide information on the use of sustainable soil management practices. So this toolbox would, for example, contain recommendations and best practices from member states with context-specific information related to the soil type, the climatic conditions, etc. So this means that the member states will not be obliged to implement these practices. And concerning specifically soil descriptors, so it's interesting to notice that the Parliament proposes to give more flexibility to member states by allowing them to set up, for example, their own threshold values for the soil descriptors, although the Commission will still have to establish the methodology to determining such threshold values and should also approve them. And the member states could also choose the soil descriptors based on the soil characteristics. And they would actually not be obliged to apply them. And the last point, so this point, it's the committee for environment in the Parliament who had proposed to impose a legally binding timeline to improve the ecological status of the soils, but the Parliament did not adopt this provision in plenary. So this was the version of the text that was amended by the Parliament, and now we will see the modifications proposed by the Council. So the main point is that for the assessment of soil health, so the Council wants the member states to use two different types of criteria for each soil descriptor. So the first type are non-binding sustainable target values, which are set at EU level, and they should reflect the long-term aspirational objective of the text, and they do not create an obligation to act. So they are in a way reflecting the ideal situation. And the second type of criteria are the operational trigger values, which are set at member states, so national level, and by member states themselves. So the idea behind this is to prioritize and gradually implement measures leading to a healthy soil status. But it also shows that the Council is looking to wants to give more flexibility to member states in the end. But on the other side, the Council maintained the obligation for member states to define and implement sustainable soil management practices. Contrary to the Parliament, we deleted it. However, the principles on which these practices should be based have become indicative. And the Council also gave more flexibility on non-take mitigation and made exemptions for the disclosure of data because the text provides for the establishment of a digital soil health data portal and also for a register of contaminated sites. So there are exemptions if the disclosure of this data adversely affects public security or national defense. Then the Council chose to delete the article laying down penalties in case of violation of the provisions adopted at national level under the directive. And it proposes that the Commission should establish an indicative list of soil contaminants which have a high potential to affect soil health, human health, or environment. So to sum up, both the positions of the Parliament and the Council watered down the initial proposal from the Commission. We can clearly see that they try to give more flexibility for member states to implement the provisions of the text, or even deleted some of the provisions. And we can add that they also refer a lot to delegated acts, which means that the implementation of the text could be delayed by several years, considering the time needed to adopt these delegated acts. So now, yeah, we can move on to the final step of the process, which is the trilogue negotiations. So as I said at the beginning of my presentation, so now that the Parliament and the Council have adopted their position, they are negotiating together to agree on a common position on the text. And this is where we are now. So the first trilogue on the 22nd of October was just an introductory session during which the main elements of both the positions of the Parliament and the Council were presented, and the Commission reacted to them. So it was more a political kickoff. Then the first trilogue was followed by technical meetings between October and November. So they started the discussions on the easiest topics to be green-lighted. We can mention, for example, the deletion of the Commission's proposal to classify soils between healthy or not healthy. So the Parliament position with the 5 categories classification could be adopted, but it is also possible that nothing would be adopted to replace it, as the Council did not propose any classification. Then in mid-November, they started to discuss the more difficult topics. And what we know so far is that the negotiations seem to go on well, because we obtained some information from the MEP Maria Noche, who reported back on the trilogue negotiations to the Committee on Agriculture, because she is rapporteur on the text for this committee, which has shared competencies on several articles. So this was on the 3rd of December. And according to her, they are currently discussing Article 10 on sustainable soil management and Article 11 on land take mitigation. So because the articles are negotiated in clusters, so in group of articles, and these two specific articles, 10 and 11, are in the second to last cluster. So it means that it should be almost finished. So the rapporteur said that the Parliament mandate was to delete almost completely Article 10, and that the idea would be to merge it with Article 11 because it has also been significantly reduced. She also reported that the Parliament is considering adding the idea of damaged soil in the negotiations, proposing a ranking system with 5 points. But the Council proposes instead a so-called traffic light system, so maybe with only 3 points. But this is all we know so far. So on the next slide, so an agreement is expected to be reached during the second trilogue, which will take place on the 12th of December. Then there will be a post-final trilogue on the 17th to finalize the text if it's needed. And there is a strong will from the rapporteur of the Committee on Environment and also from the presidency of the Council to conclude the negotiations by the end of the year. So if so, the text as agreed will be approved by the Parliament and the Council at the beginning of next year and will be officially published shortly afterwards. So putting an end to the legislative process and paving the way for the drafting of the delegated acts by the Commission to implement the provisions of the directive. Yeah, you are muted, Stephanie.
You're muted.
Sorry for this. Thank you very much, Aline, for giving us a comprehensive overview of the proposal and as well about the political discussion on this file. we hope now that the soil monitoring law will be concluded very soon. I'm hopeful because we have very engaged rapporteurs in the parliament, in the Agri committee and in the Envi committee. So I hope that they come up with a compromise. And for us, it's very important that the sustainable management practices will be maintained and will be considered further. I think this is our main ambition in the soil monitoring law, and we all know that we need a harmonized legislation for soil on European level. In the chat, I do not see any questions so far. So I think we will go ahead because I'm also happy to listen to the field trial results from Marco Bugatti. But for sure, we will keep you updated on the ongoing discussions on the soil monitoring law in our newsletter, but as well in our policy briefs, which we just share with our members as well. Okay, now I would like to welcome our key speaker. I'm happy to introduce Marco Bugatti. He's an associate professor of the University of Bologna, specializing in agricultural chemistry within the Department of Agricultural and Food Science. He holds a PhD in agricultural chemistry, and his research primarily focuses on the recycling of organic matter through composting, aiming to enhance nutrient recovery and environmental sustainability. Since 2018, he is running the long field trial on compost use in agriculture, and today he will present us the results of the first 6 years field trial. Marco, the floor is yours. Okay, I stop share and you will share your presentation.
Okay. Let's try if it is working. Okay, can you see my presentation?
No, not yet.
Now?
It's coming. Yes, it's there. Fine. It's also in presenter mode.
Okay, so thank you for your presentation, Stephanie. I'm sorry because today I have a very big cold, so I'm sorry for my voice. I'm not 100%. As Stephanie said, I'm going to present the data from this field test. And this is made in cooperation with CIC, Consorzio Italiano Compostatori, that probably most of you know. And I'm not going to say, this is a very challenging field test, but however, is very interesting. So let's try to move to the second slide here. As someone said, we need keep high quality soils, so healthy soils. And now there is a renewed interest in the closing the loop for organic materials, which is actually mainly focused on the potential replacement of mineral fertilizer. So European Union is asking to replace mineral fertilizer. So we can do that by recycling organic materials. Within this topic, we can also pay attention to the carbon sink. And lately, in the last years, it starts to be more often climate, also the importance of the soil quality. So for all these different aspects, we try to check how different compost can behave in soil. And we selected three different type of compost. ACM, which is a biowaste compost from composting process. It means only aerobic composting process. Then we have selected ACM Beach, which is coming from compost, which underwent also to anaerobic digestion. And this is not a class. This is not a class in law, not yet. But this is very different from the other two. So we choose to represent it by itself as its own category. And then we have the ACF, which is from sludge, also coming from sewage. So they are very different. They have very different characteristic, and we have. Sorry, I have a problem to switch the slide. And these are the main characteristics of the compost that we have tested. Okay, so obviously total solids are depending on the process. Volatile solids has slight differences, but what is here very, very important to see that, for example, electrical conductivity is doubled and in ACM is doubled than the other two compost. We have more or less similar content of carbon, slight differences in the nitrogen content, so we have slight. But accordingly to the regulation of fertilizer, which actually claiming that we need to respect some stability threshold. We can see that, for example, ACM is over the 25. How can I say, the expected value of 25 millimole of oxygen per kilogram of volatile solids per hour, while ACM Beach and ACM, they respected this threshold. Accordingly to the different compounds, we have also different content of nutrient. We can see that, for example, phosphorus is here present in a very important amount, especially in the compost from aerobic digestate, and also is interesting in compost from sludge, from sewer sludge. We have also the presence of other macro and micronutrients, so they can be interesting also by this point of view. And, or maybe also more important, we don't have any problem with heavy metals. So this type of products are, what can I say, very clean by this point of view. Where is located the field test? Here in the northeast side of Italy, in a very intensive farming area, very representative of this flatland, which is the Po Valley. And this is the structure of the field test. Is this? We have two very similar, two how can I say, very specular tests in which we have compared. We have called these carbon sink and nutrient, and let's see why we have called these differently later. Let's have a look to the soil, to the background level of the soil we have tested. We have chosen for the test. You can see that the pH is at about little slightly higher than 8, so slightly alkaline, very poor in organic carbon. So this is typical of the intensively exploited farming practice in Italy. So we are dealing with very, very poor organic carbon in soil. We have also very poor OSP. So we are dealing with high pH soil in which the OSP is very poor. So in other words, this type of soil is very adapted to discriminate between these aspects. So organic carbon from compost and also nutrients such as phosphorus, valuable phosphorus in soil. What we have done in the field, obviously we have compared the tree compost with a chemical standard fertilization and also with an unfertilized control. And obviously, in the 6 years, we have applied in the two different paths continuous compost application accordingly to the nitrate regulation. So this is the total amount of available nitrogen, so efficient nitrogen input. While in the nutrient path, we have applied compost only the first year, followed by 2 years of application of chemical fertilizer. We have applied only nitrogen, also in this case, always in the respect of the total amount of nitrogen within the nitrate regulation in NBZ. These are the crops we have tested. And this is how we made the test. This is how can I say, is a handmade distribution. So we have a very, very, very precise distribution. The plots are 64 square meter with 3 replication. Accordingly to the 2 agronomic path, we have 30 plots for about 2,000 square meter. This is very important, the hand application, because we are looking for very, very precise. results. So let's have a look to the results. Here we can see the different plots. Maybe this is the first year represented in this picture. And here I would like to show you how in the different years we can see the different crop. Here we have wheat, and then mice, and then wheat again. We can really see very well the different plots with the different nutrition capacity of compost, of different composts in comparison to each other. Also here we can see very different nutrition capacity. Here is last year, very clear the difference in between the different treatments. So compost is very effective to the crop nutrition. So here there is a video, probably is not working very well due to the connection. However, we have harvested the plot with a combined harvester. So we've made very sharp harvesting. This machine has an automatic device for weighing of the crops, and also to measure specific weight of the kernels and so on. So this is what we did in the hand. And also we have made very precise soil sampling, so very accurate. 2 subsample for each plot. So in the hand we have very sharp soil sampling, and very accurate and low error in our analysis. Okay, so what happened to the yield of the different crops in the carbon sink in the red bar, nutrient path in the blue bar? Obviously, after the first module of 3 years, and after 5 years in this case, not yet. We have not yet the data of the last year. We have obviously at the low range control in the high range chemical fertilizer. But what is here interesting that also the different composts behave at very similar. And here in the later stage, obviously I have summarized all the different here, so those are very high. We can see that the different treatment in the different path, they behave very similar to the chemical treatment. So they are performing very well. One of the aspects which can be very interesting in the use of compost is the nitrogen utilization efficiency, which is actually calculated with respect to the chemical fertilizer, which is here represented by this line. And we can see that most of the composts are reaching the level of chemical treatment. We had some problem in the latest year, maybe due to the drought. We have experienced a very important drought in Italy in this period, so this can be the problem. However, they have a very interesting performance. After applying a huge amount different amount of compost, we can have the total soil nitrogen at the end of the first period, of the second period, obviously increase with respect to the control and to the chemical treatment. Obviously, this increased in the carbon sink path because we have applied every year the compost to the soil, and after 5 years we have very important difference in the total nitrogen in soil. So then we have to ask to ourselves if it's opportune to store all this nitrogen in soil, because obviously crop are not really using. In the blue bar we see lower level of nitrogen, of soil nitrogen. This has been used by crop, so probably the nutrient path can be more interesting for both farmer aspect and environmental aspect, and then we see also carbon sink. Very similar also the cumulative phosphorus removal, and we can see that carbon sink remove a little bit more than the chemical references. The nutrients, so we applied only once. The compost are very in the same range of chemical. Remember that we did not apply any chemical phosphorus. So also this aspect is very important because they can represent an alternative source of P, because you know that P is climate as a critical raw material. And also in this case, we have important storage of total phosphorus in soil. Also in this case, we should ask to ourselves, is it useful to store all this P in the soil, or probably the blue path can ensure lower storage in soil, a better utilization by crop. And obviously the total P reflects also in the SOP, which is the available P for crop. And we can see that, for example, ACM DIG is representing a potential source of pollution, because we have increased dramatically the available phosphorus. So also these aspects have to be taken account. Okay, we are now moving towards the organic carbon and the organic matter quality and amount aspect in soil. And obviously, accordingly to the different path in the different triennium, we have applied different amount of carbon. So obviously here we have applied every year the compost. So those are the ton per hectare we have distributed in that field in the first triennium, and those are the ton we have distributed in the second triennium. So we are dealing with the important different total amount of organic carbon applied. And what happens to the organic carbon in soil hand in hand of the first period and the fifth year? We can see that obviously following a continuous compost application, so the carbon sink, we have important increase of organic carbon in soil. We have a very important increase here after 5 years, so we are dealing with very, very high organic carbon now in soil. What is here interesting that the blue bar are never below the chemical treatment. So also one application of compost can ensure preservation of the soil carbon, and this is confirmed also in the second period. So those bars are always higher than chemical P. So the posted application of compost can as well preserve at least or slightly increase the soil organic carbon. Well, we mentioned about the soil quality. We mentioned also there are no general consensus about the method to assess the soil quality. One of the methods used at international scale is the measurement of labile carbon. This is assessed through the action of a weak oxidizing agent, which is actually a strong oxidizing agent, but used at very, very poor, very high dilution, which is potassium permanganate. And by this oxidizing agent, we are measuring the active carbon, which is considered the carbon available for microbial biomass. These allow us to calculate also the carbon management index, which is actually an index of soil functionality. Here is how can I say, simplify the formula equation to show how is it calculated. Obviously, this is calculated accordingly to the ratio between the labile carbon over the total carbon from a treatment, calculated as a reference to the chemical treatment, because we are comparing compost as with with fertilizer capacity. What happens to the soil labile carbon in this field test? We can see that obviously control and chemical treatment are very poor. The nutrient path is generally slightly higher, or at least in the same level of the references, but the carbon sink path ensured very higher labile carbon. Obviously, in the long term, it is even more evident, and is evident also for the nutrient path. So in the long term, also false application of compounds can ensure higher soil labile carbon. And what about the carbon management index? The carbon management index is calculated with as a chemical fertilizer reference, which is represented here by this dotted line. And we can see that obviously the carbon sink path ensured very high carbon management index, even higher in the long term, in the medium long term, but also in the nutrient path we have an interesting carbon management index, maybe better in the medium term. At last, I reported the 50 carbon natural abundance at the end of the period. We know that the negative are, so the more negative are these value, the more is the compost derived carbon in soil. And what we can see here that obviously the carbon sink performed very well after 3 years, but also maybe better also after 5 years. And what is interesting is that in the medium long term, so after 5 years, also the nutrient path ensured some carbon in soil preserved from come from compost. Here we have a relationship between the labile carbon here against the theoretic carbon, which is actually more or less proving that the higher is the labile carbon, the more negative is the delta of carbon. So we can confirm that the carbon in soil, this type of labile carbon in soil, is coming from compost. Obviously, carbon sink has more extreme values. There is obviously a very important relationship, and this is very interesting because obviously this value of a labile carbon is telling us that what we say as useful carbon for microbial community comes from compost. I'm sorry, this cold is terrible. Okay, so just to conclude, I would say that we can say that after the first period of how can I say assessment, the first period in which compost needed to be come si dice assestamento? I don't remember, so it have to be after the first period of rearrangement of microbial community, then compost can ensure grain yields in the range of farm fertilization. We have very important increase of soil organic matter with continuous inputs of compost. So in the carbon sink path, but actually we are accumulating nutrients such as nitrogen, phosphorus, which are not utilized. So there is a mismatch between the fertilization and the plant utilization. So probably we need, so the best option is apply pulsed fertilization. So 1 year of compost, 2 years of chemical fertilizer. What is interesting that in both cases we have a good management of the carbon. If we don't increase it, at least we are not consuming it. So in both cases, these practices are very, very interesting. I haven't been able to insert also the data from this year, not yet, but the data coming from last year are confirming all this trend. So everything is running very well. Okay, thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Marco, for this very nice presentation with all these detailed results on carbon. I think it was a very complex topic. I don't see any question in the chat so far, but I have several questions to you. Probably I can pose my questions to you, and meanwhile there will come in some other questions. Can you let me know why didn't you add to the nutrient trial P and K in the second and third year? You only add nitrogen because you wanted to focus on the nitrogen availability, or was the reason that you were sure that with one application of compost you have a sufficient basic fertilization with P and K?
Yeah, we didn't apply. We apply only nitrogen to see if compost application can medium long term phosphorus or potassium level for the crop, and they did. So compost can ensure also PMK and calcium to the crop. So that can be a good opportunity to combine organic and chemical fertilization.
Can you give any advices also for the policymaker in the soil monitoring law? Any characteristics which they should consider for the indicators for soil health? You have a lot of experience as well with this carbon index. You manage this carbon management index. Is this a solution to implement this into a regulation, or is this too complicated, or is this not possible? Oh, he's frozen far away. Marco, we cannot hear you. Okay. I have some impression that the connection with Marco is disrupted. Hopefully he's coming back. For sure, I would like to thank him very much for this presentation. And I expect as well that the field trial will be further followed up. In this, with this said, I would like to thank as well our Italian.
You were frozen. Sorry.
I was frozen. You were frozen. We didn't
No,
stop.
okay. Sorry, we were frozen each other. Okay. No, so
okay.
carbon management index. That was the question. Can be useful. That's the question. Yes,
Yep.
this can be useful. We have probably to better assess if we have interferences, for example, from leaching, so from polymers with phenols and so on. These have to be proven, but also if we have interferences by leaching in soil, we know that leaching is a is a precursor of our stable organic matter. So I think that can be useful in the study of the soil health. I'm working on it. I think that this can be very useful.
Okay. I was saying before, thank you very much for your presentation, and I also thank the Italian Compost and Biogas Association for supporting this project. Do you know how long this project or this field trial will run? So I think, do you have now the results of 6 years? Will it go for further 6 years, or what is the plan?
At least we are going for further 3 years. Okay. We will see if we are able to find enough funding. That's always the problem, you know.
And what are the topics you're following? You're still following on the issue of stabilization of carbon in the trials, or are there other aspects you would like to deep into in the next 3 years?
No, we are continuing this. We have to confirm this trend. What can be very interesting in the future would be the measurement, assessment of the water retention capacity from soil which has been treated with compost, because we have seen that compost, good quality compost, not saline compost, can ensure higher water retention in soil. So we have made already some sampling. We are trying to assess the curve of water retention, and then we are also using stable isotope in crop. So you know that crop under stress, water stress, they have a different isotope discrimination. So we are also trying to use that. In the end, we have seen that good compost can help the crop to resist to heavy drought. Not very high quality compost cannot help. So we need also to improve also the quality of saline aspect, not only the presence of organic matter. We need also to take into account for the presence of sodium or other, but maybe sodium is the most critical in Mediterranean environment. So we have very poor rainy weather. In this condition, this can be very critical. So the measurement also of the water retention capacity is one of the future target in my mind.
Okay, I have a question as well to the different compost materials. You showed at the beginning the different characteristics. I was a little bit surprised about the high content or the how high value on for the oxygen uptake rate in the compost material in comparison to the digested compost material. Can you explain this? I always was thinking that the digested materials have a higher or is more label than the compost and as such.
So you're talking about these values?
Yes, I'm talking about these values.
Yeah,
About
generally,
46.
digested compost or compost from the sludge are subjected to two steps. Two steps composting. I mean, we have anaerobic digestion followed by aerobic composting, and the same is this is subjected only to composting, and sometimes those are not really very well done. So we are seeing very often higher than the references.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but the input material for the composting and for the post-treated anaerobic digestion material was the same. So it was in both cases bio-waste from separate collection and green
Yeah,
waste.
it's the same, but in the digestate, those are, I can say, they are pure. So there are
Mhm.
pulped waste, and then after digestion, those are mixed with bulking agent.
Okay.
And here they are mixed with bulking agent from the beginning. But these process, how can you say, the anaerobic digestion is a very, very consuming readily organic accessible matter. So generally, I see my experience, years of measurement, digested compost are always lower than bio-waste compost.
And this has also an effect on the carbon content of the material. I think
Yes.
the difference is not very high, but I think it's clear that during the anaerobic digestion process, carbon is
This
also
this
degraded.
these affect also the carbon storage in soil, because when we spread these type of compost unstable, in the long term we have lower carbon preserved.
Okay.
So this is very, very important, because you can see that here we have very high electrical conductivity, very low stability. So in the end, this is not, how can I say, a very excellent product. So we have to work also on those two aspects of the quality.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your response. I don't see any further question in the set, so thank you very much for your time, and I think we will go further with our agenda of the webinar. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, we are back to the original presentation, but I have to go further. Sorry for this. I thought that I will be on the same page as before. Need some seconds. Okay, now we are coming to the point where we want to present to you as well other topics where we are dealing with. So ECN is as well involved in several European projects, but also members of ECN are involved in European projects. And I have the pleasure as well to welcome Eva Maria Lopez Hernandez from the Italian Compost and Biogas Association. She's charged of collaborative projects of the Italian Compost and Digestate consortiums and is engaged as well in the Live Biobest project, where ECN is dealing as well in this project, and the Fair Play project. I hope, Eva, that you're there and that you will take over.
Yes. Do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you very clear. And
okay.
Hi, thank you.
Thanks to you for the invitation to this webinar. And well, as a small presentation, I just wanted to remind that, as you might know, in the last years, the European Commission has set an important number of funding opportunities for projects that tackle the challenges on soil health through research and awareness raising actions. This confirms somehow the level of commitment with the topic soil and the compromise to reverse the current situation in Europe. So Life Biobest, Fair Play and Quarry are three good examples of the European funding projects on soil topics. The first project I'm presenting is Life Biobest. If you can go to the next slide, please. Yeah, it is a project that was born to comply with the requirements of a really specific call from the European Commission, aiming at preparing the basis for Europe guidance and standardization to enrich soils with high quality compost from collected organic waste. Actually, the project leitmotif is you see on the slide, is guiding the mainstream of best biowaste recycling practices in Europe. And its goal is, in a first step, to identify and validate the existing best practices and management instruments along the biowaste value chain, from the generation to treatment, and on a second step to provide clear guidelines, indicators and decision support tools addressed to policymakers, not only at European level but also at national and local level, and to technicians to improve the efficiency of the biowaste collection and management, in order to allow the production of high quality compost and digestate. Next slide, please. The consortium partners are you can see in this slide. The leader is a Catalan company specialized in biowaste management, and as you can see, both ECN and the Italian Composting and Biogas Association are partners. Next slide. It is 2.5 years. We are starting the last semester of the project. So from all the foreseen outcomes, we have already many documents available in case you are interested. You can see them in the slide, and we are promoting them in our events. Actually, I will send in the chat later on, when I finish, a link to the last newsletters, so you can download there all the documents if you are interested. So there is a set of 4 high quality guidelines on separate collection, governance and economic incentives, high quality compost and digestate, and effective guidelines on effective communication, a policy brief on regulatory issues, the standards for biowaste entering organic recycling processes that we propose, and as an assessment matrix of best practice. The ones in bold letter are already available. We are now currently working on the last 2, on a guidance for European politicians and on a decision support tool. So next slide. As I was saying, we are currently elaborating a document which is intended to be like a roadmap for the European policymakers, with an overview of the current EU legal framework, which is, as you know, very complex, and giving specific recommendations to strengthen it for the efficient biowaste management. You can see here as an example the main recommendations that we provide to promote and develop strong markets for compost and digestate produced from biowaste. The first one is to reinforce the synergies among the different policies and instruments involved, which, as you know, are many. So soil interaction between the soil monitoring law, the nature restoration law, the common agriculture policy, the carbon farming certification of carbon removals. And the second one, if you can go ahead with the slide, is dedicated to enhance the use of organic fertilizers and soil improvers through mainly subsidies on the rural development plans and through quality assurance. So I invite you to take a look of all the documents, since we think they are high quality and can be a good guidance for political instruments. Let's go ahead with the Fair Play project. Okay, so Fair Play is a coordination and support action project aiming to create favorable conditions for the widespread uptake of production and use of circular fertilizers. We have called circular fertilizers those one produced out of waste as byproducts and wastewater. Go ahead, please, with the next slide. The project aims to raise awareness on the benefits of circular fertilizers to the three main target groups, which are on the right of the slide, and to whom the project addresses all the messages and actions. So they are the end users, which is mainly the agriculture sector, the fertilizer producers, and the public administration. The project, in a first step, has selected 7 value chain producing circular fertilizers out of wastewater, or byproducts, to be studied in detail through an assessment of benefits and impacts, which is currently ongoing. Next slide. These are the 7 value chains that are currently being evaluated through a life cycle sustainability assessment. Next slide, please. And these are the partners involved in the project. As you can see, the consortium includes representatives of the before mentioned 3 target groups of fertilizer producers like CHIC, farmers, local administration, apart from the technical centers and communication experts. We are, next slide, please. We are about to finish the project because it ends in February next year. So we have already some of the outcomes available. The first one is a database gathering information of about 60 value chain from the production to the use. We have engaged around 1,550 stakeholders into discussions following a co-creation approach. Actually, all the inputs that we have received from these co-creation events about the opportunities and barriers that they face have actually fed the 3 guidelines that we have elaborated for the 3 target groups. So the one for fertilizer producers, for example, is focused on commercial strategies and how to build trust on the consumers. The one for the end user is explaining how the 7 circular fertilizers are produced and how to be used on the soil. And the last guideline for the public administration is providing information about best practices to be replicated to other territories. Apart from each, the assessment study on the regulatory framework and local acceptance is about to be available, together with a document explaining the results of this life cycle sustainability assessment. So these last 2 are ongoing, but the rest ones are already available on the website. I give the floor to you. Thank you.
We can't hear you, Stephanie. No. Still no. Yeah, I think, yes, but from far away.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry for this. I don't know why my headphones are not running anymore. So I will try to speak. So Eva, thank you very much for presenting the two projects. These are very valuable sources for information and also for having a change. We were also happy to have a workshop with the Fair Play project in Brussels this year. It was very interesting to have good practices presented during this Fair Play project in this webinar or in this seminar we had. But as well, we are reporting as well about the Live Biobest project regular in our newsletter, and we are also involved in the webinars of this project. Besides these two projects, ECN is involved in a further project. This is the Interreg project, Composting in Rural Ecosystems. This should also provide guidance on good practices on composting, anaerobic digestion, but also on smart composting and on the use of compost. So this covers several projects. You can also find more information on the website of this project, where we also regularly publish the good practices. The project is running since last year, 2023 in March, and it will run until 2027. And you can see here we have we are in total 9 project partners, which are distributed across Europe. So we have a project partner from Sweden, we have project partner from Macedonia, North Macedonia and Greece. We have Hungary, we have Spain, we have Belgium, Germany is included with environmental agency from Brandenburg. And we have Poland there, and as well South Tyrol, the autonomous province of Bolzano. So it's covering more or less Europe from south to the north, from west to the east. And all these partners contribute with good practices to this project. What are the, as I mentioned before, there are different topics in this project. So we are looking also on prevention of food waste, on prevention of organic waste, on regulations, how to set up quality assurance schemes, what are the quality criteria for compost for digestate, and including in all these thematic seminar where we have an exchange with the project partners, we are organizing as well study tours to different site visits and so on. As I mentioned, we have a dedicated website for this, where you find at the moment, I think, more than 20 good practices published from our project partners. So please have a look there, because you can find there really good ideas how to manage bio-waste or also how to prevent food waste. So there are plenty of information there. There's also a project brochure available, and as well we have a YouTube channel where we have provided as well a project video, and during our study visit we are also setting up interviews, but also video sessions about the processing of the material. And as you can see here, this is not only an example from one of our seminars, that there was also something about closed loop gardening. So we are not speaking only about recycling, we are also taking the consumer into account, and also the persons that are producing bio-waste. So if you are interested in good practices, please follow this project. We will follow up this project with several thematic seminars in Hungary and in Sweden in the next years. And please visit this website. Okay, this was from our side on the project work, and we are now coming as well to the end of the seminar. Finally, I can say we all know that our soils need more attention. Our soils have to become healthy, and therefore we are very happy that the Commission has taken up the initiative to come with a legislative approach on soil health. We hope that this will come into force someday. We all know that these processes are long-lasting, but I think we need on European level as well a harmonized structure how to improve our environment in a global sense. Okay, as heard today, soil organic matter plays an important role And therefore, we have also set up with the Italian Compost and Biogas Association in 2019 a common initiative on safe organics in soils. With this initiative, we want to raise awareness for soil organic matter, which is lacking in a lot of soils in Europe. And so we really want to make more noise on soil health. So please have a look as well on our site, Safe Organics and Soil. And if you want to support our initiative, please sign the manifesto on the site. Finally, if you are still in favor to hear more about soil and about compost, we are happy that we always celebrate the World Soil Day together with our International Compost Alliance. That means with our colleagues from America, from South Africa, from New Zealand, from Australia, and several of our partners are also offering webinars today. So you have the possibility to join directly after this webinar at 4 o'clock this afternoon to the Canadian Compost and RIA UK is joining this webinar as well, together with the Compost Council of Canada on residual compost boosts soil health and plant stress. So this might be also very valuable to listen to this. And in the evening at 9 o'clock, you have also the possibility to follow the direct evidence on the impact of organic amendments on carbon stabilization in soil microaggregates. Also, this webinar is organized as a joint event between the Compost Council of Canada and RIA from UK. So, finally, I would like to thank again the Department of Agriculture and Food Science of the University of Bologna for taking over the patronage for this World Soil Day. I would like to thank all speakers and for sure as well all the participants, and please feel free to contact us. Please subscribe to our newsletter where you will get more information, and if you have a higher interest to discuss with us these topics, please join ECN. I wish you a very nice World Soil Day, and I hope to keep in touch with you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Eva. Thank you very much.
Bye, Stephanie. Thanks to you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye, Aline. Ciao.